Hi, I'm Ellie Ballard, and welcome back to Law, Justice, and Social Change. Law operates as a dynamic social institution that strives to balance its functions of maintaining order and fostering change, but it grapples with dysfunctions that can hinder justice. So, understanding these dynamics is essential for being able to critically assess the effectiveness and the fairness of the criminal justice system. So, let's explore some key functions, dysfunctions, and some assumptions of law with real world examples to help illustrate their impact. Let's look first at the social functions of law. And first up, we have social control. Law helps us maintain social order by defining acceptable behavior and imposing penalties for violations. An example would be DUI laws. They deter drunk driving and promote public safety through strict enforcement and penalties. Next, we would have dispute settlement. Legal processes provide a structured way to resolve conflicts peacefully. An example might be a civil court handles disputes such as landlord and tenant disagreements. This is a legal resolution, right, instead of escalating the conflict. Next, we have social change. Laws often serve as tools for advancing societal transformation, so to speak. One example, of course, would be the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It prompted significant social change by outlawing racial segregation. Now, we also have the preservation of civil rights. This is the legal frameworks that ensure individuals' freedoms are protected under the rule of law. Probably the one you're most familiar with would be Miranda v. Arizona. This is the ruling that requires police to inform suspects of their legal rights, safeguarding, of course, due process, right? You have the right to remain silent, you can get an attorney if you cannot afford one, right? All of that. Now, lastly, we have this expression of moral values. Now, we've talked about this. Law often reflects societal beliefs about morality and acceptable conduct. For instance, theft laws uphold the value that taking another person's property without consent is morally wrong. Okay, let's move to social dysfunctions of law. First, law may perpetuate inequality. That is, laws may reinforce disparities by favoring powerful groups. For example, think about the sentencing disparity between crack cocaine versus powder cocaine that disproportionately impacted, that devastated already marginalized communities. Second, value imposition. So legal norms sometimes reflect the moral values of dominant groups rather than a true societal consensus. An example might be the blue laws, right? Historical laws requiring things like mandatory Sunday closures of businesses. This really reflects a religious value of the dominant group rather than true societal consensus, restricting this commercial activity based on those values rather than on universal agreement. Lastly, we have overregulation. Excessively rigid laws can create inefficiencies or unintended consequences. For example, mandatory minimum sentencing removed judicial discretion, leading to harsh penalties for nonviolent offenders. Okay, finally, let's turn to the assumptions in the study of law and society. First, law is embedded in society. The legal system is influenced by cultural, political, and social norms. It's inevitable. For example, cybercrime laws have evolved as society increasingly relies on digital technology for communication and commerce. Second, law has a societal impact. Legal decisions can influence multiple aspects of society, sometimes, of course, unevenly. For example, stop and frisk policies were intended to reduce crime, but disproportionately target communities of color, resulting in arrest disparities and, of course, more egregiously, just unequal and unjust treatment of members of these communities. Third, we have law reflects societal changes. As society evolves, laws adapt to reflect these transformations, of course. For example, the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 reflected growing societal recognition of the need to address racial discrimination and promote equality. Now, lastly, law reflects society, right? Law, as rules or social institutions, reflects the type of society in which it's found. Now, for example, I'm going to go way back. In feudal societies, laws emphasized land ownership and hierarchical obligations such as serfdom or fealty. Now, this reflected the agrarian and class-based structure of these societies. Okay, thanks for joining me. As always, please reach out to your instructor if you have any questions.